Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I'm finally going to be doing my top 10 best fiction reads of 2020, and from that you may infer that there is another video coming for non-fiction. But without further ado, let's get started. So basically my criteria for what I consider to be the best in all my reading last year, because it was really tough to decide what to put on this list, because there were practically no duds for me last year. I read some really quality books. So first of all, I decided that there will be no repeat authors. So basically, I decided that if I read multiple books from one author, then I kind of picked a favorite from those. And then I focused on the prose, like stylistic choices. Were they fresh? Were they individual? Were they memorable? How emotionally engaging the book was it thought-provoking, and what was its longevity? Did I think about it a lot after reading, and what was its entertainment value? So those were all of the things that I thought about when I was compiling this list. And on the number 10 spot is Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. I really loved this book, and this is exactly why I never compile a list before the end of December, because there are at least two things on this list that I read in December, and they were marvelous. Especially in Empire of Sand, I loved the lush prose, and I loved the subtlety and quiet power that the main character of Meher had, and how she was allowed to exhibit strength in a very untraditional way, and I really loved her character. Number 9 on my list is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. I just really love where the series is going. It is sort of taking darker turns and starting to explore more sort of mature topics while still being true to its middle grade audience. And it is sort of navigating this idea of corruption, which is a main theme throughout this series, and sort of the idea of nature versus nurture in terms of evil, and who gets to decide if a person is evil, and can, if you get put into that box, can you still fight your way out? And yeah, I just thought that this book did some really groundbreaking things, and that's why it's on this list. And then number 8 on my list is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is another pick that I read in December, and it was wonderful, whimsical, really sort of nostalgic in the sense that some of my favorite things were written by Douglas Adams, and this sort of scratches the same itch that Douglas Adams books did, where they're like sarcastic and snarky, but also really like good-humored, and make you think while also have like being very humorous and entertaining you to no end. So yeah, The House in the Cerulean Sea was so wonderful. And also it has characters that are in their 40s, and it explores a romantic attraction between two men who are at that point in their lives where they are thinking about establishing a family, and they are maybe not as impulsive as in their youth. So that is something that I always love to see when media portrays LGBTQ+ characters that are older. And then number 7 on my list is Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko, translated to English by Julia Maytov Hersey. And I have been talking about this book all year long. I made a full review that I will link up in the cards and in the description. I have mentioned it at least in 2 different recommendations videos, and now it's on my best of the year list. So I have been thinking about this constantly ever since I finished reading it, and I want to reread it at some point, because this is a book that has so many layers that it demands to be reread and re-explored. And yeah, it is a dark and twisted tale of change and metamorphosis and what that might look like, and reconfiguring yourself as a human being, and trying to basically discover new ways of understanding existence. And it is wonderful, and I wish more people would read it, but I also understand that it is not for everyone. Number 6 on my list is Get Alive, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This was my first foray into the genre of romance, and I loved it. I loved the character of Chloe Brown. I felt incredibly seen by this book. The chronic pain representation was everything to me, because it was wonderful to read about a character who is a complete nerd and who has a career and has like her life in semi-order, and gets to explore these romantic feelings and such, and she is allowed to have chronic pain and she's allowed to be disabled, but she isn't ridiculed for it. It doesn't make her less worthy of having romance and adventure, and I love that, and I loved the romance in this book, and yeah, that's why it's on this list. Number 5 on my list is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nhi Vo. Another book that I have been thinking about constantly ever since I read it. I loved the layers of this. I loved the way that it was told. It is a story within a story, and also there's focus on like these items and what their significance and importance to the story is. So it's like this idea that a story and a history can live through in objects, and yeah, this book just packed so much fantastic storytelling and characterization in such a short page length. And yeah, I also the second book, The Tiger Came Down the Mountain, was the first read I read in 2021 now, so Nhi Vo is fast becoming a new favorite, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this story. Number 4 on my list is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and this was a really hard choice because I also read Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler, but as I said, no repeat authors, there can be only one, and Kindred is still the unconquered favorite book that I have read by Octavia E. Butler. It was so thought-provoking, it was gripping, it was fast to read, like I couldn't put it down. Even though it was incredibly difficult to read it because of the content matter and the sheer brutality and violence of it, I just could not put it down. I had to know what was happening, and after that I have basically been convincing people to read it. I will paraphrase Rachel from Kalanadi again when she put it in the most perfect way, that Kindred is about witnessing, and that's how I felt. Like I was witnessing something and I must not look away, and it was deliciously good. Number 3 on my list is The Black God's Drums by P. Djeli Clark. Now this was another tough call because I practically read every single thing that P. Djeli Clark has published, in like in his oeuvre. I basically only have like maybe 2 novelette-length stories left to read, but other than that, I have read everything by him. He is a new favorite author. Like I will read anything by him. But The Black God's Drums, which was the first book by him that I read, was still my favorite. It had the most memorable characters to me. It had a setting that I really enjoyed, and I just want to know more. I want more from that world. I loved the exploration of like African pantheon and how that gets sort of warped and changed when it is brought over to the American side of the pond and stuff. And I always love a good steampunk, and this was great. Number 2 on my list is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, and once again, this was perfection. I loved the exploration of sisterhood and grief. I loved that the sisters both enjoyed different things and were their own distinct characters, and it was explored beautifully. And I also loved that Yahaira was queer, and it was no big deal. She just had a girlfriend, and her girlfriend is also a fantastic character, and she was just allowed to be, and there was no drama around it, and I loved that. I love that she just, you know, got to be a girlfriend and in a relationship like anyone else. And I loved the contrast between Yahaira's situation growing up in New York versus Camino's situation growing up in the Dominican Republic in a completely different setting. And yeah, this was just so wonderful. I loved the prose. I loved that in the audio it is told with 2 narrators, and they are both so distinct and have this lovely cadence. And I loved the exploration on like sexualization of like women, and the exploration of sexual assault and how to deal with it, and how women are often ridiculed and guilt-tripped about the advances and attention of men that they didn't invite in the first place. So that was wonderful. I love this book. Yeah, highly recommend. And finally, we have come to my number 1 spot on this list. And what could it be? Drumroll, please. It is El Lazzoe by Darcy Little Badger. My favorite book, my top 1 book of this year, of 2020. I love this book. It was beautifully written. It had wonderful explorations of just like a normal, respectful family and that dynamic, what it means to have mutual respect for your parents, and also your parents have respect for you, their child. I loved the storytelling and oral tradition, and passing information down to the next generation is a central theme throughout the book. And I love the illustrations which support that feeling of oral tradition and work as their own narrative in and of themselves. I loved the mythology and the fantasy aspects, which were just so mundane in a sense. Like this is just like, oh well, we have ghosts, oh well, we have vampires, oh well, there's like corn people living on cornfields. Like, it's so wonderful, and people using fairy circles to travel, and it's just, I love fantasy in the mundane, that it's just an aspect of everyday life. I love that. It was just like, yeah, it happens. Like, wonderful. And yeah, I just really liked this book. And I don't know what else to say about it. It's just like, this book was near perfection. I devoured it. I want my own copy. It is everything. This book is chef's kiss. Beautiful, fantastic. I want everyone to read it. And there you have it. Those were my favorite fiction books of 2020. And I hope you liked this video. Tell me in the comments which of these have you read or which of these are you interested in reading. And leave me a star emoji in the comments so that I know that you were here. And I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye bye!